Hey guys, it's Silbethium once again, and once again we are here with Returnal. So I asked on Twitter, would people maybe like for me to make a guide on the game, how to get better, how to understand the game better, how to manage overall situations in the game? And the response was very, very positive. So here we go. Guide on Returnal. We're going to be splitting this in segments. I'm going to talk about many things. I'm still not sure about the length of the video, but I encourage you to watch the whole thing if you really, really want to get better at this game. And all of this that I'm going to be talking to you about Returnal can be applied to many, many other hard games. Okay, so consider this an introduction, and the first thing I would like to say is that if you are going into this game, you're brand new, and you're going into this game trying to compare, immediately you're trying to compare against someone else who has been playing the game, they have done very well, they maybe even got a platinum, they showed a few videos, or you just want bragging rights, you are going into this game with a massive, massive disadvantage, a huge handicap, because you have put this burden on yourself, and going into a hard game and you are inexperienced, you are going to get frustrated. So you pretty much make a situation where your frustration can be very much accented. It can grow larger than it needs to be, and once you get frustrated, you will be making mistakes. So you are at a big disadvantage. With that being said, let's move on to the first little part. Now, the very first thing we're going to be discussing in this guide is your choice of weapons. And really, there can only be two choices you should be considering. Both of those give you this amazing, amazing option to retreat to safety or proceed attacking other enemies while the enemy that you originally shot at is still taking damage. The weapons in question are Electropylon Driver and Rod Gland Launcher. These two are the best, absolutely best weapons that you can use to put Returnal to the sword. Just make it a lot more easier, because look at this, you fire at an enemy, enemy's taking damage, you can forget about them. You can be in the safety of cover, or like I said, focusing on other enemies. Just gives you the option and freedom to choose what you're doing next. Now here's the thing, a lot of people are gonna recommend Hollow Seeker. I'm not one of those, because for the Hollow Seeker to be effective, you need to be maintaining a steady rate of fire at your target, so it chips away at the target's health. But this also means that your target has a very clear line of fire right back at you, and that makes you vulnerable. You should be enjoying these other weapons once you get comfortable and familiar with the game, but for your very first beginner steps, I recommend these. Using the alternative fire, it can be a two-edged sword. So here's the thing, it can be a very nice source of that little extra damage that you might want to use, that you need, but when you are aiming your alternative fire, your field of vision has decreased significantly. And because this is something that has a cooldown, it is not available all the time, you want to make this shot count. And because you want to make it count, you're going to be aiming, and while you're doing that, you will not be paying attention to the minimap. This leaves you open to the enemies swarming you from the back, from the sides. It doesn't matter, you will get hit. Also, it shouldn't be your opening shot. Alternative fire you should be using as a follow-up shot, like that. So, you have a target that you have picked out, a target that you already have a steady fire on and you're chipping away at. It should be a follow-up shot, because your aim is established and you just follow it up, because if you're opening with the alternative fire shot, you can actually miss. One absolutely massive, big thing that I cannot stress enough for you guys is bullet management, and this is something that you can be applying to Returnal and other third-person shooters, FPS games. This is going to help you so much. And what I mean by bullet management is, let's assume that enemy is right there where the cursor dot is pointing at. You fire at the enemy moves, and you just keep tracing the enemy's movement with your rate of fire. This is horrible. What you should be doing is fire at an enemy, you acquire the target at its new position, and you commence firing. You're just going to take down the enemy with fewer bullets, and more often than not, if you do trace the enemy movement with your rate of fire, you're going to leave yourself open for another enemy, because it happens quite a lot that you have focused all of your magazine on a single enemy, and there's another enemy, at least one, that's right there beside you, and more often than not, it's like on the brink of death. Maybe you had like few more bullets to spare, but not enough to take the enemy down, and you are going to get hit. So, by bullet management, you keep more bullets for more targets. Alright guys, so here we have a mini-boss, and this is an ideal situation for me to discuss two very important things. The first thing is using the environment to your advantage. This is just as important as picking out the correct guns, because when you use the environment, it's going to be creating opportunities and openings, as well as providing much needed defensive options. And when you combine that with the correct weapon, there is no enemy that you cannot make a joke out of. The second thing is fear psychology. So games like this, games that are supposed to be hard, they kind of depend on this imposing enemy design that instills fear inside the player. And when you feel fear, you are going to be panicking, you're going to be stressed out, that leads you to making mistakes, and also the player then forgets about all the tools that the game is putting at your disposal to deal with everything. And one of those things is the melee. So melee is extremely powerful. It generates massive stagger on any type of enemy, especially these mini bosses. But to use melee, you have to get in very close. And to do that, well, the player has to decide between, the safety of the distance or going in there into a very dangerous situation. And this is absolutely what I meant by fear psychology, risk and reward. So I'm going to be showing you now how I'm going to use everything the game has offered me, melee, the environment, everything, to turn this boss into an absolute fucking joke. And there we go, guys. And I did this even using just the melee. Now imagine if you had the Rod Gland Lobber or the Electropylon Driver, this would have been even easier. But you might ask, okay, Albelfium, these bosses, mini-bosses, they usually come accompanied by, a medium-sized or sometimes small number of regular little enemies. What are we gonna do then? How can we do this one-on-one with the boss? Well, the thing is, again with the fear psychology, when you enter one of these rooms that get locked down, on effect when you are entering, you have a lot of time before the mini-boss actually spawns. But you see this giant pulsating red mass when he's warping into the arena, and you panic. You cannot let panic get to you. Because when you do, you're going to be making mistakes. You have enough time to clear out all the regular little enemies before the mini-boss appears. And then you can just take him one-on-one. Okay, so here I'm going to show you how to deal with mobs of enemies. What I did here was I literally ran inside a room and I ran out. The doors closed behind me, all the enemies have spawned, and I am safely on the other side. What this means is I know exactly where the enemies are, and you even have these little, cues where the enemy is actually precisely positioned. This gives us a massive, massive advantage. People think if you run into a arena, you have to fight inside this said arena, but you don't. You can backtrack, you go to the door literally can act as a shield where you're going to be blocking a lot of enemy fire while you are also taking them out and you are funneling them towards yourself. You can't get surprised from the back, you will not get flanked. You are making the enemy come to you head on into your line of fire, and I'm going to now show this to you. Here we have a very specific situation that can happen quite often in Returnal. You have an assortment of shielded turrets. Now, most of these turrets are going to be firing rapid fire, but they always throw something a little bit extra into the mix. And since you can't exactly shoot at these guys, your mobility and management of your own fear is going to be key here. Have confidence, do not let the game get to you. And I'm going to show you just how easy this is. In combination of using the environment, like we are actually dodging here through the turret fire, because why not? Here we go. And we have one of these guys. So, if you don't feel confident engaging him over there, you just lead him away. Just lead him away from that arena where the turrets cannot get to you. This is again where that amazing, amazing terrain comes into play. It comes to your rescue, so to speak. So use it, it's there to benefit you. Just a sec, let's see how this plays out. Do you see how easy this is using Electropylon? So there we go, we got basically surprised there by another enemy. And we have all these turrets here watching out for one another, so to speak. And there we go. All of that without getting hit once. All through fear management, using the tools that the game has put available to me, using the environment most of all, and of course that beautiful, beautiful melee. And one more thing to address is the flying enemies. So, dealing with the flying enemies is also going to be crucial because there's quite a few. See, how we deal with these guys. You just keep getting out of their range, and while you're backtracking, you just keep shooting them down. Because the flank enemies usually have two kinds of attack. It's going to be either slamming into you with melee, or a long-range attack that's going to be dependent on missiles or something else. But as long as you keep the distance between you and them, you will be fine. But Albethium, what about situations where you are in close quarters? Well, you're gonna be using the environment to your advantage. You can peek around corners and just keep pummeling them. You will be absolutely fine. So we are here on Frike, and it is the first boss in the game. I'm gonna be using him to make a point out of certain things, because a lot of people they are very much too eager to kill the boss, and this kind of brings them into a situation where you are literally trading blows with the boss. If you enter a situation where you are trading blows with the boss, you are going to lose every single time, because the boss has a lot more HP than us. And all of these bosses, they kind of give you very clear openings when to attack them, and their attacks are heavily telegraphed. So when you see an attack being telegraphed, this is your cue to be on the defense. Forget about shooting the boss, because if you overcommit, you're going to be in a situation where you have just sacrificed way too much. Way too much. Focus on your little openings, little by little, because if the boss fight does indeed last longer, it's still going to last quite less than you repeating the boss fight over and over again. Just have patience. You are going to kill the boss. Just do not overcommit. It is very, very simple. Very, very simple. And here's also the thing, because all of his attacks are indeed telegraphed, and then he throws in this melee, because this kind of throws you off. The melee comes with a delay, and the first instinct you have as a player when a boss gets so much close to you is to dodge. But since the melee comes with a delay, even if you dodge like immediately, as soon as the boss is there next to you, he is going to fuck you up. You need to read these situations, because the game is programmed to always be doing the same thing. There is not something that can happen that you haven't seen before. It's always going to behave in a certain pattern. It's always going to be repeating the same thing. So if you get ready for these tricks that the boss has, that's all it takes. That's all it takes. Have patience, pay attention to what you are doing, pay attention to the boss. Do not let fear, panic, and stress take over you, because then you are going to overcommit. And when you overcommit, that is a huge, massive, massive mistake. When you overcommit, you lose. Well, here you have it, guys. This is my guide for Returnal, and I hope this helps you. One final thought. Well, like I said at the beginning, to not play these games to prove something. Play this for yourself, play this for fun. Do not let the game make you afraid. The biggest power that you can have on your side is the power of confidence, the power of disrespect. If you rob the game of instilling fear in you, the player, you're going to be in control, because the way I terrorize these games is by being the scariest thing in the game, and once you achieve that, well, only sky is the limit. Hope you enjoyed this, guys. I enjoyed making this. I hope this really helps. I say again, everyone who watches it, especially the new players, the game is amazing, and it would be a shame if we put it down for, giving up. That being said, I hope everyone has a fantastic new year. I wish everyone the best, and if you like this, maybe consider helping me by subscribing to my channel. It would mean a lot. Bye, guys. See you in the next one.